Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan Liedl, Senior Editor with the National Catholic Register, and I'm joined today by three bishops. We have Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City, Bishop James Conley of Lincoln, Nebraska, and Bishop James Wall of the Diocese of Gallup in the southwest part of the country. Great to be with you all. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us.
And so we have three bishops talking to the register today, but we're not talking about the top USCCB priorities or the latest news out of Rome or anything like that. We're talking about pilgrimage today because the three of you just completed El Camino de Santiago in Spain. I think it was 2 weeks, 200 miles in total. So quite an undertaking for all of you. So Archbishop Coakley, why don't you just share what was the impetus behind it? What's the origin for it, for you three doing this pilgrimage together?
Well, this particular pilgrimage was kind of a continuation of a journey that began actually 10 years ago when the three of us did a different section of the Camino de Santiago together in 2012. So at that point, we did the last 100 or so miles of the Camino. This time, we decided to go back and pick up not where we left off that time, but to complete a section that we had not done, which was the middle section. So this has been something that I've kind of gotten hooked on. This was my fifth time doing a section of the Camino, either the French route or the Portuguese or the Primitivo. There's a variety of different Camino routes that pilgrims might choose, all to Santiago, the tomb of St. James the Greater.
And is that for you, Bishop Conley and Bishop Wall, is 5 the record among you, or are you all kind of, is this a multiple time that you've done this as well?
Full disclosure, I've only done 3. I did the last portion during World Youth Day in 2011. Then, as Archbishop Coakley said, we did it all together in 2012, the last 100 miles, and then I'll let Bishop Wall say the ones they've gone since this. It's been 10 years since I've been on the Camino. So, but Archbishop Coakley and Bishop Wall have done a couple since then.
Yeah, how many times, Bishop Wall, have you been on the Camino?
Archbishop Coakley and I have done it 5 times together, and then obviously Bishop Conley. The 3 of us have done it twice, but we went in 12. We did the last 100 of the French Way, and people mostly know that from the movie The Way. And then in 13, we did the last 118 out of Portugal. And then in 16, we did the Primitivo, which is still my favorite. And that's the original way. It all started there. It's not the most popular, but it's the original way. We did 212. We did the full Primitivo. And then in 18, Archbishop Coakley and I started in St. Jean, which is the traditional starting place for the French Way. And we finished in Burgos. And then the 3 of us were going to go back in 2020, but COVID happened, and we were able to do that. So we put it off for a couple of years. But this gave us our full 500 over essentially over 3 trips.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't know if it had something to do with it being the Camino de Santiago and 2 of you being, Bishop James's, if that was a special connection, or if you felt a special patronage kind of going on pilgrimage to the place of James the Greater's tomb.
Yeah, I think for all of us, we all have this particular devotion to St. James, and it being one of the great pilgrimages of the church, and obviously Bishop Conley and I, it's our patron saint as well. But I know Archbishop Coakley has just as big a devotion to St. James as we do.
So he's an apostle, so I think that was maybe one of the things that, as successors of the apostles, I think we kind of felt a kinship with him and his witness.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for those who haven't done pilgrimage before, 200 miles, 2 weeks, it might seem like a lot of time with a lot of walking. So Bishop Conley, why don't you share with us, started off by just sharing, what do you do during all that time, all that walking?
Well, one of the things I think that's beautiful about a pilgrimage is you just basically disengage with your everyday life. So you really travel with all you have on your back. and you're you're out of your comfort zone, as we say, and completely in a new surrounding. And so basically you walk. I think time sort of slows down because you're disengaged and disconnected with everything, and then you just observe where you are. I think everything becomes much more magnified. Weather, night, day, people, villages, and then you just walk the way, and so you've got time. It's a good combination. You've got time to yourself to just contemplate. You talk with your fellow pilgrims. We had great conversations, great laughs with each other, and then we meet other pilgrims along the way. We run into all kinds of people. This time we ran into a bunch of Koreans, Irish, and even people from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's just every day is different, and every day is just kind of a new experience of the world we're walking through.
That's beautiful. I love, you almost described it like a time machine in a way, like in the sense that you maybe, it's one of those activities where you maybe get to experience what it was like for someone to do it 900 AD, right? Over 1,000 years ago, if you're not, as kind of bogged down by technology and kind of the demands of work. Was it a kind of a retreat in a way? How would you describe the kind of spiritual refreshment you experienced, Bishop Wall?
Yeah, I would say it's very much like a retreat, because a lot of the times you're walking in silence. We walk together, but we don't walk together. So we kind of spread out, and when we want to talk, we'll walk together. If we want to pray together, which we do, we'll pray the office while we're walking, or pray the rosary while we're walking, or have conversations. But a lot of times we are spread out when we're walking, and it gives you a great opportunity just for silence. And so it very much is like a silent retreat for good long periods. You could walk for an hour and not say a word, or hear somebody speak. So it's very much like a retreat.
That's beautiful. And I saw Archbishop Coakley, maybe you can speak to this, and then about praying for your diocese as you do this, right? I was following along on some of the social media posts, and I think Bishop Conley, yours, and something different that you would encounter or recognize on the Camino would remind you of something back home. So whether it was, you're walking through a field of wheat and thinking of people who farm back in Nebraska, or you're in Spain, so thinking of your Hispanic people back home. So Archbishop Coakley, what were some of those intentions that you kind of offered up on this journey?
Well, I was very conscious of, of course, my whole archdiocese, the people that I've been entrusted with. This particular Camino, I was very conscious of and mindful of my priests and praying for them. We had a big seminarian gala right before I left, and so I was very mindful of the needs of our seminarians, needs of our priests, prayed a lot for vocations to the priesthood. Each day there was something different, perhaps different intentions that would come to mind each day. So it wasn't scripted or anything. It was kind of take it as it comes. It's very much living in the moment, and maybe it's a pain in your back or a pain in your foot or something that puts you in mind of other people's sufferings, and unite our own sufferings or inconveniences with those of others, and offer them to the Lord. So it was there's plenty to pray about in that.
Yeah. It sounds like it provides plenty of opportunities to offer things up and unite them to the Lord, as you said. I'm curious also, we talked a bit about, the ancient origins, right, of El Camino de Santiago. And, one aspect of it that people really, think fondly of, that we don't experience as much today, is hospitality along the way. And you think back to the origins of El Camino, and it was really visitors, foreigners coming to a country they'd maybe never been to, and traveling by foot without all kinds of conveniences and people along the way helping them. Bishop Conley, is that what's that like in 2022? I don't know, experiences of hospitality along the way, or really just kind of interacting and maybe connecting with the local culture.
I think that the spirit of hospitality on the Camino is still very much alive, that tradition. And you have to think that these people that when you go into a village and book into a hostel or sit down and have dinner at a restaurant, that these people have been providing hospitality for pilgrims for hundreds and thousands really of years. And maybe their grandparents, the parents, grandparents, and ancestors are doing this. And so we experience that a lot. The people are that's just what they do. Of course, they depend upon the pilgrims for their livelihood, especially those that run businesses like hotels or restaurants. But just the people of the village. One day we were at, I can't remember where it was now, these guys probably remember, but there was a retired professor of Spanish literature. We were just sitting these guys were smoking cigars. I don't smoke cigars. And these guys were just sitting having a cigar, and this guy walks up and we start talking in Spanish, and he tells us, he's a Spanish professor, high school professor, and he starts talking about Spanish history, and and we just kind of hit it off and talked to him for a good half an hour, 45 minutes. But he's probably been seeing people walk through his village for his whole lifetime. Yeah. And we saw that everywhere we went. People were just used to having pilgrims walk through, and they're very much open to us and very welcoming, and they want to talk to us and find out where we're from. And it's just a great spirit of hospitality.
That's beautiful. Yeah, Archbishop.
I remember our very first Camino experience when we arrived at the place we intended to start from. We had taken a bus from Madrid, and we hopped off the bus with our backpacks and we started walking toward where we thought the trail was. We started off immediately walking in the wrong direction, and the first people we encountered got our attention and said, pointed back behind you, "You're going the wrong way, pilgrim." So they look out for us, the pilgrim.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful concrete reminder of our dependence, right? Ultimately on God, but then also on each other, on the church and on our community. Bishop Conley, you talked about this professor who'd probably met hundreds, if not thousands, of people doing the Camino before. But I'm wondering, 3 bishops from the U.S. doing it together just seems like such a cool and unique sort of traveling group, right? Is that something, when you met fellow pilgrims, is that something that kind of caught people by surprise? Bishop Wall, why don't you share first, and I'd love to hear from Bishop Conley and Archbishop Coakley as well.
Yeah, we are a very different group. Very different. And so, because generally you might have maybe a larger group and they might have a priest leading them, or I don't think we've ever met another bishop. And I think Archbishop Coakley and I have walked about 840 miles together. I don't think we've ever met another bishop making the pilgrimage. All the other bishops do. And so we're a bit of a different group, and it's interesting. You can walk along with people for miles and miles and miles, and the question never comes up, what do you do? And then maybe that evening you're the celebrant at the pilgrim's mass, and then their eyes are wide open when we come walking out. So and then word starts to travel around. Oh, the bishops, the bishops are here. The bishops. Yeah. And
you're kind of incognito for a little bit.
Yeah, we don't look the way we look right now, and we look just like your regular standard pilgrim walking along with hiking gear on, and so it's a bit of a surprise, but it's great. I love it when people find out who we are or what we are, because it really opens up some great conversations. Yeah, it's really
it's beautiful, because I know the Camino, obviously we'll talk about this a little bit more, but it obviously began, in the very heart of the church. Is a very Catholic thing to do, a pilgrimage. But nowadays, of course, this pilgrimage in particular is just very popular as almost a tourist activity in some ways. So, Bishop Conley, you mentioned in a Facebook post that there are just incredible opportunities for evangelization, just by the nature of journeying together with people from whatever various walk of life they come from, whatever belief they have. How did you experience that this time on the Camino?
Well, it really is true. I would say probably 80% of the people who walk the Camino either have no faith at all or are certainly not Catholic. And so they're doing it for various reasons, all kinds of reasons. And but at the same time, they have this understanding that this is a religious thing. You know, this is a spiritual experience, and it's great. I like when we do blow our cover, and you know, they find out that we're bishops. It's not that we hide it or anything, but sometimes it comes up, and we say, "Yeah, we're bishops, Catholic bishops," and then we get an opportunity to explain to them, "Well, this, you know, this what we're doing, what we're all doing together, has a very ancient origin because we're all headed to the tomb of an apostle of Jesus Christ who was a personal friend of his." And for some, it's, "Oh, really? Is that what this is all about?"
Wow,
and it's an opportunity to start a conversation. And I know when we reached Ocebrero, which was the kind of conclusion of this leg of it, the priest there was wonderful because he realizes that the people who come to the mass, and the church was packed. He realizes that a lot of these people probably haven't darkened the door of a church in a long time. And so he gets very basic with them, that the message is that God is love, that God loves you. He has a plan for you, a path for you in life. And that this Camino is sort of a metaphor on your plan of life, that God's plan for you. And so we were both up there with him, and he handed a little pebble to each of the pilgrims that had the flecha, or the arrow that we all see when we try to follow. And that was sort of just the very simple charisma that he was trying to get across, that, you know, we all have direction in life and it leads to heaven. And so there's great opportunities to just start at the very basic level of evangelization.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, because as you point out, people, maybe they haven't darkened the door of a church in a long time, or maybe they have no faith background, but there's something about doing a journey like this, right? That obviously we know as Catholics, it's a time to walk with the Lord. It's a time to offer these, offer the journey up to him, to pray for others, to go and pray at the tomb of an apostle, as you said, someone who knew him. But there's also kind of a human element, right? Like people are drawn to it, it seems, because there's maybe the opening or an inkling, right, of what is there to life, and maybe going and walking, in silence, or just getting away from work and technology and in nature for weeks at a time might be a way to open that up. Archbishop Coakley, we don't have, pilgrimage routes in the U.S., which we'll talk about in a bit. They're not as well established as they are in Europe. But what is really the theology, if you will, of the pilgrimage? Why is that such a quintessentially Catholic and really human practice?
I think Bishop Conley touched upon it a moment ago. It's a reminder to us. It's a physical image, if you will, of a life of discipleship. We're not just wandering aimlessly. We're following the Lord. There's a direction. There's a purpose. There's a goal. And it's always beautiful to see pilgrims as they arrive after walking days, weeks, months, sometimes, to the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. They arrive finally at the church that has been the goal of their journeying for so long, and to see the reactions of people, they often will simply collapse. They'll be weeping, they'll be hugging, there will be physical gestures of joy and gratitude. So I think that's the journey. It's an image of what our Christian life is about. We're not just wandering in circles, like the Israelites who had lost their way perhaps in the desert. We're following a path, we're following a way, we're following a Camino. It's the way of the Lord Jesus, and it's the way of discipleship. So I think it's a reminder of that in a very physical, concrete, tangible, real sort of way.
Beautiful. And it also strikes me that it's a spirit, obviously a spiritual journey, as you say, kind of incarnating the fact that we're on this journey with Christ. But I just honestly, something that I think is so cool about the journey that you three went on is that there also is, a fraternal element, right? That there is friendship involved, even though, as you said, Bishop Wall, you're walking together, but not together. I'm sure there were also times where you were talking and enjoying each other's company. And I would just love to hear, maybe starting with you, Bishop Wall, why is that important? I think, and honestly, just a question, especially as bishops, because you think priests in a diocese, they have their peers, right? And then when you're a bishop, I wonder if that's sometimes kind of isolating, and just the importance of being able to have a fraternal opportunity like this with your brother bishops.
Yeah, well, we probably walk by ourselves. At least I do, because I'm a bit of a talker.
No.
One slows down and one speeds up. Yeah, when you're in a diocese, like all of us were in diocese, you're the lone bishop in the diocese, and so you don't have as many opportunities to get together for you can call each other or text each other and things like that, but just physically to be with one another, and kind of put a suspension on things at home. It's just a great gift, and you grow in your friendship and your fraternity with one another, and conversations are great, and the conversations are all over the place too. So we can talk about spiritual matters, we just talk about personal things, things that strike us as being funny, or all sorts of different things.
Yeah, Bishop Conley, what about you? What's the significance of having an opportunity, not just for spiritual refreshment, but really that kind of fraternal connection as well?
Well, like Bishop Wall was saying, we are in any diocese, you don't have the relationship like you did when you were a priest in a diocese with your peers, like you were saying. And so we, in our own dioceses, we're the kind of the guy at the top, so we just don't really have anybody we can go to. And so and we stay in contact outside of the time we're together. But when we're together like this, we, like Bishop Wall was saying, we have an opportunity just to kind of be ourselves and not be the bishop. We're just we're all peers on this. We're all pilgrims. Everybody's the same. It's a great equalizer. And so we're able to just to kind of open our hearts, talk to each other about things that are, challenging in our, we'll talk. We don't talk a whole lot about work, so to speak, but it comes up because it's who we are. It's our life, and we'll, conversation will come about a difficulty in the diocese or a challenge we got ahead of us when we come back. But it's just a great way to receive that support and strength and advice and counsel about our work as bishops in our life as bishops, and that we're not alone. We're not alone. Where there's a brotherhood even among the bishops, and that's a beautiful thing, and really an opportunity like that, because we spent 3 weeks together.
Yeah, okay, 3 weeks, not 2.
Yeah, we were 3 weeks because we took some days off. Full disclosure, I took 3 days off on the Camino, so I didn't walk the full 200. I did 140. I think Bishop Wall kind of 142.5 miles. I had surgery on my feet over the winter, and so I had this metatarsal fusion of my joints. So I was a little bit hobbled. So I'm glad I took those days off, and of course I got a hard time from these guys on it, but they were good. They understood. In fact, they even
probably
said,
while they were smoking their cigars or something. Probably.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I had to get the drinks ready for them, and they came in the next town. So, but it was just a great, it's a great time of fraternity and support and encouragement as brother bishops.
That's beautiful. Obviously Europe, I actually remember reading on a coffee table, I was on a retreat somewhere, they had a book of all the retreats in, they're not retreats, pilgrimages in Europe. And there's the Way of St. Oslo up in Norway. I think you can do the Via, however you say France in Latin, Via Franciglia from Dover all the way to Rome through France. So incredible opportunities in Europe. In the US, maybe not as much history, not as many pilgrimage routes are known, but I'm wondering if the three of you have any favorite local pilgrimages, or what we can do really to maybe start a culture of pilgrimage here in the US, so that as great as it is to get to Spain and obviously to go to a place like the tomb of St. James, we could have more opportunities for that locally. So Archbishop Coakley, why don't you kick it off, and what are your thoughts?
Well, one thing that comes to mind immediately for me, here in Oklahoma, we're getting ready to dedicate a shrine to Blessed Stanley Rother, who was the first U.S.-born priest to be beatified, the first U.S.-born martyr. And we have been preparing this shrine where he'll be buried as a place of pilgrimage. And we've already had people planning and preparing to come on pilgrimage. There's one organization actually in the US that is fully committed to walking pilgrimages, much like the Europeans have been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so this organization is already expressing a desire to plan pilgrimages for people to walk to the shrine of Blessed Stanley. They came last summer, or earlier this year actually, to on a walking pilgrimage to his tomb, where he is currently buried, as an expression of that Christian notion of pilgrimage, being pilgrims on a journey, and giving that expression. I know in Wichita, which is where Bishop Conley and I had been priests before we became bishops, there is a great cult developing around Father Emil Capon, servant of God Emil Capon, who is a World War II and Korean War chaplain who died in a prisoner of war camp in China or Korea. But they have already developed a practice there of walking on pilgrimage to his hometown, the place where he was born and baptized, and it attracts hundreds of people each year. So it's a growing phenomenon, I think, here in the U.S. as well, though we don't have that rich history that many European places might.
I'd jump in here too. There's a pilgrimage that started about 3 years ago in Oklahoma, not in the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, but up in Tulsa. Pilgrimage to Clear Creek Abbey. They call it the Three Hearts Pilgrimage. And it started with just a couple of maybe like 30, 40 boys and their dads. And it's grown to over 1,000 now. And they're getting ready in October to do it again. It's about a 3-day pilgrimage, about 35 miles, starting about 35 miles from the monastery, making their way to Clear Creek Abbey and ending there and having mass and celebrating that. So I think there is a kind of a growing awareness, and especially with the Camino in France or in Spain, the Camino Frances, people who want to do this in the United States who maybe can't travel to Europe, like you're saying, John.
Yeah, what about Bishop Wall? What are there any locally here in the U.S. that you could point to?
There, there's actually one in New Mexico, and the Archdiocese of Santa Fe of Chimayo. It's kind of known for the holy dirt. It unearthed a crucifix hundreds of years ago, and so I know it's very, very big for people to make pilgrimage on Good Friday, but people will do it throughout the year. The three of us have been there. We haven't walked there, but we've been to Chimayo together, and so that's one here in the United States that people are able to do. And even to think about the faith here in the Southwest has been here since the 16th century.
That's right. Yeah. Was that the second diocese is in Santa Fe, or?
Santa Fe was the first in the United States, but originally it was out of Durango.
Okay. But it reached all the way there. Okay. Well, yeah, I think mine, I've done a pilgrimage to Our Lady of Good Help just outside of Green Bay, which as a Packers fan was kind of a double pilgrimage. I could see Lambeau on the way, but yeah, just a beautiful time of prayer and unity and reflection. And I think the three of you going on your own pilgrimage to El Camino de Santiago and sharing it with us as well, I think is just a beautiful witness to all those things, and friendship as well. So yeah, I hope, what would you say to someone who doesn't know about walking 200 miles or something like that? What would your encouragement to them be?
Take care of your feet.
Yeah,
Dr. Schul's souls or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about the feet. But I would say too, don't be intimidated, because we ran into people in their 70s and 80s, and then we ran into families with kids. So it's something, and everybody can walk. Well, not everybody, of course, some people can't, but if you can walk, you can do a pilgrimage.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Well-
there's been people that have been on the pilgrimage in wheelchairs and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And people ride their bikes and all sorts of different ways. There's a beautiful movie called I'll Push You. That's about two best friends. One's in a wheelchair, and he pushes him in the entire 500 miles. Beautiful movie.
Beautiful. Well, maybe we can organize one that goes through all three of your dioceses or something like that, and you can lead it. We can all join you. But thanks so much for taking time to share with us, and thank you for your witness as well.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Awesome. Much appreciated. Thank you, everyone.
God bless.
Have a good day. Bye.
God bless.
Bye.